In the heart of France, nestled between the Rhône and Saône rivers, lies Lyon, a city steeped in history and culture, yet caught in the throes of conflict during World War II. By 1941, Lyon had become a focal point of Nazi occupation, its vibrant streets now shadowed by the specter of oppression. The once bustling markets and lively cafes were muted, their patrons wary of the German soldiers patrolling the cobblestone alleys. The city's rich tapestry of life was fraying, but beneath the surface, a current of resistance was beginning to swell. By the time the German forces tightened their grip on France, many citizens felt a profound sense of despair. Yet, amid this bleakness, a flicker of hope emerged in the form of the French resistance. The year 1941 marked the beginning of a significant transformation within Lyon, as individuals from various walks of life began to unite against their oppressors. Among them was Jean Moulin, a former prefect whose unwavering resolve would become a beacon for the fragmented resistance movements scattered across the nation. Moulin's journey was fraught with peril. Having narrowly escaped arrest, he understood the stakes involved in opposing the Nazi regime. His vision was clear: to unify the disparate factions of the resistance into a cohesive force capable of mounting effective operations against the occupiers. The German authorities, however, remained dismissive of this burgeoning movement, viewing it as a mere nuisance, a paper army that posed no real threat to their control. This underestimation would soon prove to be a grave miscalculation. In the early months of 1942, as the winter chill began to thaw, Moulin's efforts bore fruit. He convened meetings in secret locations across Lyon, often in the basements of sympathetic citizens or abandoned warehouses, where the air was thick with tension and uncertainty. The resistance fighters, drawn from diverse backgrounds, students, workers, and even former military personnel, gathered to discuss strategies and share intelligence. They knew that their actions could lead to dire consequences, yet the desire for freedom outweighed their fears. When the German occupiers continued to underestimate the resolve of the French people, the groundwork for the Armée Secrète was laid. This clandestine organization aimed to coordinate sabotage operations and gather intelligence for the Allies. The mimeographed orders, once ridiculed, became the lifeblood of the resistance, disseminating vital information and operational plans among the fighters. These documents were produced in secret, often in cramped quarters, where the faint sound of a typewriter could mean the difference between life and death. The streets of Lyon, no longer filled with the sounds of laughter and music, echoed with the whispers of resistance. The city became a battleground of ideas and ideologies, where the spirit of defiance began to take root. The Armée Secrète was not merely a collection of individuals, it was a movement fueled by a collective desire for liberation. The German authorities, oblivious to the growing threat, remained focused on maintaining order and exploiting France's resources for their war effort. As 1942 drew to a close, the resistance prepared for a confrontation that would challenge the occupiers' complacency and demonstrate the resilience of the French resistance. The Armée Secrète, once dismissed as a paper army, was poised to make its presence felt in a way that would reverberate throughout occupied France. The time for action was drawing near, and the people of Lyon were ready to rise against their oppressors, united by a common cause and an unwavering belief in their right to freedom. The backdrop of Lyon during the early years of World War II was one of stark contrasts. The city, known for its rich culinary heritage and vibrant cultural scene, had become a microcosm of the broader struggles faced by France. Following the fall of France in June 1940, the German occupation brought with it a wave of repression that permeated every aspect of daily life. The once bustling streets were now filled with the heavy boots of soldiers, and the air was thick with fear and uncertainty. Lyon's strategic location made it a vital hub for the German military. Situated at the crossroads of major transport routes, the city served as a key logistical center for the occupiers. The railways and bridges that crisscrossed the region were essential for transporting troops and supplies, making them prime targets for resistance operations. The resistance fighters understood this, and their plans for sabotage were meticulously crafted to disrupt the German war machine. Daily life for the citizens of Lyon was marked by hardship and deprivation. Rationing was strict, and food shortages became increasingly common as the German authorities prioritized resources for their military efforts. The once vibrant markets were now shadows of their former selves, with long lines of weary citizens waiting for meager rations. The sense of normalcy that had characterized life in Lyon was shattered, replaced by an atmosphere of tension and fear. In this environment, the resistance began to take shape. The Armée Secrète was not born overnight. It emerged from the ashes of despair and disillusionment. Various groups, such as Combat, Liberation, and Franc Tireur, operated independently, each with its own leadership and objectives. The lack of coordination among these factions was a significant challenge, but it was also a testament to the diverse nature of the resistance. Each group brought its own strengths and weaknesses, and their eventual unification would prove crucial in the fight against the occupiers. Jean Moulin's role in this unification process was pivotal. He recognized that to mount an effective resistance, the various factions needed to work together. His charisma and determination inspired many to join the cause, and he became a symbol of hope for those who longed for liberation. Moulin's ability to navigate the treacherous landscape of occupied France was remarkable. He held clandestine meetings in hidden locations, often relying on the goodwill of sympathetic citizens who risked their own safety to support the resistance. The mimeographed orders, which had once been a source of ridicule, became essential tools for communication and coordination. These documents were produced in secret, often using makeshift printing presses, and distributed among resistance members. They contained vital information about planned operations, instructions for evading capture, and updates on the status of the resistance movement. The mimeographed orders transformed into lifelines, connecting fighters across Lyon and fostering a sense of unity among the disparate groups. As 1942 progressed, the German authorities remained largely oblivious to the growing threat posed by the resistance. Their focus was on maintaining order and suppressing any overt signs of dissent. The Gestapo, tasked with rooting out resistance members, employed brutal tactics to instill fear among the populace. Yet, despite the risks, the spirit of defiance continued to grow. The citizens of Lyon, inspired by the courage of the resistance fighters, began to take small actions of rebellion, hiding Jews, distributing anti-Nazi pamphlets, and engaging in acts of civil disobedience. The city itself became a canvas for resistance. Graffiti slogans calling for liberation appeared on walls, and clandestine meetings were held in basements and backrooms, where the air was thick with determination. The resistance fighters knew that they were operating in a dangerous environment, but the desire for freedom outweighed their fears. They understood that their actions could lead to dire consequences, yet they pressed on, driven by a collective yearning for liberation. By late 1942, the groundwork for a more organized resistance was being laid. The Armée Secrète began to take shape, with a clearer hierarchy and lines of communication. The German authorities, still dismissive of the resistance, would soon find themselves confronted with a formidable adversary. The resistance prepared for a confrontation that would shatter their complacency and demonstrate the resilience and ingenuity of the French resistance. The people of Lyon were ready to rise against their oppressors, united by a common cause and an unwavering belief in their right to freedom. The night of September 9–10, 1943, arrived with palpable tension in the air. The city of Lyon, under the cloak of darkness, was about to witness a dramatic confrontation that would alter the course of the resistance. The Armée Secrète, having meticulously planned their operations, was poised to strike a blow against the occupiers that would resonate far beyond the city limits. By the time the clock struck midnight, the silence of the night was shattered by a series of explosions. The resistance had launched a coordinated assault on key infrastructure targets, including several bridges and rail hubs that were vital to the German war effort. The once dismissed Paper Army had proven its mettle, executing a complex operation with precision and effectiveness. The explosions rocked the city, sending shockwaves through German command. The occupiers, caught off guard by the scale and coordination of the attack, scrambled to respond. The chaos that ensued was a testament to the resistance's ability to operate under the radar, avoiding detection while planning and executing a major operation. The effect of the sabotage was immediate and profound. The destruction of key bridges and railways disrupted German logistics, hampering their ability to transport troops and supplies. The resistance had struck at the heart of the occupiers' operations, demonstrating their capacity to inflict significant damage and challenge the status quo. The German authorities, previously dismissive of the resistance, were forced to confront the reality of a formidable adversary. The Armée Secrète had shown that they were not merely a nuisance but a credible threat capable of mounting sophisticated operations. The occupiers' complacency had been shattered, and the balance of power in Lyon had shifted. In the aftermath of the sabotage, the city was plunged into turmoil. The German response was swift and brutal, as they sought to identify and punish those responsible. The Gestapo launched a relentless crackdown, arresting suspected resistance members and conducting reprisals against civilians. The mimeographed orders, no longer a source of mockery, had become crucial evidence in their investigations, revealing the extent of the resistance network. Despite the crackdown, the resistance's resolve remained unbroken. The success of the sabotage operation had galvanized their efforts, inspiring others to join the cause and intensifying the struggle against occupation. The Armée Secrète had demonstrated the power of unity and determination, proving that even in the darkest of times, the spirit of resistance could not be extinguished. The night of sabotage in September 1943 marked a turning point in the struggle for Lyon. The resistance had shown that they were a force to be reckoned with, capable of challenging the occupiers and inspiring hope among the French populace. The confrontation had revealed the true strength of the Armée Secrète, and set the stage for the continued fight against tyranny. When the sun rose over Lyon, the city was left to grapple with the aftermath of the explosions. The bridges lay in ruins, their destruction a stark reminder of the resistance's audacity. The German military, reeling from the shock, began to reassess their strategies. The complacency that had characterized their approach to the French resistance was replaced by a sense of urgency, as they recognized the need to tighten their grip on the city. The immediate response from the German command was a series of emergency meetings, where high-ranking officers convened to discuss the implications of the sabotage. They understood that the loss of critical infrastructure would not only hinder their logistical operations but also embolden the resistance. The very foundations of their control were being challenged, and the fear of further attacks loomed large. In the streets of Lyon, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of fear and defiance. The Gestapo's presence intensified, with patrols increasing and checkpoints becoming more frequent. Civilians were subjected to scrutiny, their movements monitored as the occupiers sought to root out any potential collaborators. The once vibrant city was now a place of suspicion, where neighbors eyed each other warily, unsure of who might be an informant. Yet, amid the fear, a flicker of hope began to emerge. The successful sabotage operation had ignited a spark among the populace. Word spread quickly about the audacity of the Armée Secrète, and many who had previously felt powerless began to consider their own roles in the resistance. In time, the mimeographed orders became symbols of defiance, their messages inspiring ordinary citizens to take action. In the days following the sabotage, clandestine meetings were held in basements and backrooms, where resistance members gathered to discuss their next steps. The sense of urgency was palpable. They knew that the German response would be severe, but they also understood that the momentum had shifted. The time for action was now, and the resistance was determined to capitalize on their newfound strength. The Armée Secrète began to implement a series of small-scale operations aimed at further disrupting German activities. Graffiti calling for resistance appeared on walls throughout the city, and leaflets were distributed, urging citizens to join the fight against occupation. The mimeographed orders evolved into a rallying cry, their contents reflecting the growing resolve of the people of Lyon. As the Gestapo intensified their crackdown, the resistance fighters adapted their tactics. They became more cautious, employing a decentralized approach that made it harder for the occupiers to dismantle their network. Safe houses were established, and communication methods were diversified to minimize the risk of infiltration. The spirit of collaboration among various factions of the resistance grew stronger, as they recognized that unity was the greatest weapon against oppression. The German authorities, frustrated by their inability to quell the resistance, resorted to increasingly brutal measures. Public executions were staged as a grim warning to those who dared to defy the Reich. Yet, even in the face of such horror, the people of Lyon refused to be cowed. Each act of brutality only served to strengthen their resolve, a testament to the indomitable spirit of a city that refused to bow to tyranny. The confrontation of September 1943 had far-reaching implications, not only for Lyon but for the broader resistance movement across France. The successful sabotage operation inspired similar actions in other cities, as the message of defiance spread. The Armée Secrète became a symbol of hope, demonstrating that even the most oppressed could rise against their oppressors. As the weeks turned into months, the resistance continued to grow in strength and sophistication. The mimeographed orders carried detailed plans for coordinated actions, their distribution carefully managed to avoid detection. The resistance had become a well-oiled machine, its operations characterized by precision and discipline. The aftermath of the September sabotage marked a pivotal moment in the struggle against occupation. The Armée Secrète had proven that even in the darkest of times, the light of resistance could shine brightly. The Nazis, no longer dismissive of the threat posed by the French, had faced a formidable adversary, one that would not rest until the chains of oppression were broken. As Lyon prepared for the challenges that lay ahead, the spirit of resistance remained unbroken. The city, once a symbol of occupation, was now a beacon of hope, its streets filled with the promise of freedom. The confrontation had not only changed the fate of Lyon but had also inspired a nation, proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the courage to resist could lead to liberation. When dawn broke over Lyon on the morning of September 10, 1943, the city awoke to a stark new reality. The air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke, and the distant echoes of the previous night's explosions lingered like a haunting refrain. The bridges that had once stood as silent sentinels over the Rhône and Saône rivers now lay in ruins, their skeletal remains jutting out like the bones of a fallen giant. Rail lines, once bustling with the relentless movement of German supplies, were twisted and broken, their utility shattered by the audacity of the Armée Secrète. The German command, caught off guard by the scale and precision of the sabotage, scrambled to assess the damage. Panic rippled through the ranks of the occupiers, their previous derision replaced by a palpable sense of vulnerability. The once mocked paper army had demonstrated a capability that could no longer be ignored. This was not the work of a disjointed band of rebels. It was the calculated strike of a coordinated force, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the corridors of power. Gestapo agents, their reputations on the line, launched an immediate and ruthless investigation. The mimeographed orders, which had been dismissed as the idle fantasies of a defeated people, now became the focus of intense scrutiny. These documents, painstakingly distributed through a clandestine network of couriers, revealed the intricate web of the resistance. Names, locations, and strategies were laid bare, each page a testament to the courage and ingenuity of those who dared to defy the Nazi regime. The Gestapo's response was swift and brutal. Raids were conducted across Lyon, targeting suspected resistance members and their families. Homes were ransacked, and civilians were dragged from their beds in the dead of night, their cries echoing through the narrow streets. The city, once vibrant with the hum of daily life, was now gripped by fear and uncertainty. Yet, amid the terror, a new sense of resolve began to take root. For the people of Lyon, The sabotage was a turning point. The explosions had shattered not only the physical infrastructure of the city but also the illusion of German invincibility. The occupiers, once seen as an unassailable force, were now exposed as vulnerable and fallible. This revelation inspired a newfound sense of hope among the French populace, a belief that resistance was not only possible but necessary. In the days following the sabotage, the Gestapo intensified their efforts to dismantle the resistance network. Interrogations were conducted with ruthless efficiency, and the prisons of Lyon swelled with those accused of aiding the Armée Secrète. Yet, despite the escalating violence, the spirit of resistance remained unbroken. The mimeographed orders, once a source of mockery, had become symbols of defiance, their words echoing in the hearts of those who longed for liberation. As the Nazis tightened their grip, the people of Lyon found solace in small acts of rebellion. Messages of support were scrawled on walls, and clandestine meetings were held in basements and back rooms. The resistance, though battered, was far from defeated. The revelation of their capabilities had galvanized the city, uniting disparate groups under a common cause. The aftermath of the explosions marked a pivotal moment in the struggle against occupation. The Armée Secrète had proven that even in the darkest of times, the light of resistance could shine brightly. In time, the Nazis faced a formidable adversary, one that would not rest until the chains of oppression were broken. As the weeks passed, the city of Lyon became a crucible of resistance. The Gestapo's crackdown, while brutal, could not extinguish the fire of defiance that had been ignited. The mimeographed orders, now carefully crafted and distributed, became the lifeblood of the resistance's activities. They detailed plans for sabotage, provided instructions for clandestine meetings, and offered guidance on evading capture. The resistance fighters, emboldened by their recent success, began to expand their operations. They targeted not only infrastructure but also German personnel, launching ambushes and gathering intelligence that would prove invaluable to the Allied forces. The unity forged in the aftermath of the sabotage allowed for a more coordinated approach, as various factions of the resistance worked together to maximize their impact. The German authorities, increasingly frustrated by their inability to quell the resistance, resorted to draconian measures. Public executions were staged as a grim warning to those who dared to defy the Reich. Yet, even in the face of such horror, the people of Lyon refused to be cowed. Each act of brutality only served to strengthen their resolve, a testament to the indomitable spirit of a city that refused to bow to tyranny. The aftermath of the September sabotage had set into motion a chain of events that would ultimately lead to the liberation of Lyon. The city, once a bastion of oppression, was now a hotbed of resistance, its streets alive with the spirit of defiance. The Armée Secrète had proven that even the most oppressed could rise against their oppressors, and the people of Lyon stood united in their quest for freedom. By the end of that year, the Nazis found themselves facing a resistance that was not only resilient but growing in strength. The crackdown, intended to crush the spirit of defiance, had instead forged a movement that was more determined than ever to fight for liberation. The people of Lyon, united by their shared suffering and their unwavering belief in a brighter future, stood as a testament to the power of resilience in the face of oppression. The revelations of September 1943 would echo through history, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the courage to resist could lead to liberation. The Armée Secrète had transformed from a mocked paper army into a formidable force, its actions instrumental in the fight against tyranny. Lyon, once a city under siege, was now a beacon of hope, its streets filled with the promise of freedom and the enduring spirit of resistance. The aftermath of the September sabotage in Lyon marked a critical turning point in the struggle against Nazi occupation. The explosions that had rocked the city not only disrupted German logistics but also ignited a fierce response from the occupiers, one that would have profound consequences for both the resistance and the civilian population. The Gestapo's swift and brutal crackdown was a calculated attempt to dismantle the Armée Secrète and instill fear in the hearts of those who dared to resist. As the sun rose on September 10, 1943, the once vibrant streets of Lyon were transformed into a landscape of fear and uncertainty. The German authorities, enraged by the audacity of the resistance, unleashed a wave of terror that swept through the city. The Gestapo, armed with intelligence gleaned from the captured mimeographed orders, launched mass arrests, targeting not only known resistance members but also anyone suspected of harboring sympathies for the cause. Neighbors turned against neighbors, and the atmosphere of mistrust permeated every corner of the city. The prisons of Lyon quickly filled to capacity, with detainees subjected to brutal interrogations. The Gestapo employed a range of tactics to extract information, from psychological manipulation to physical torture. The cries of the innocent echoed through the cold, damp cells, a haunting reminder of the cost of defiance. Yet, even in the face of such brutality, the spirit of resistance remained unbroken. The stories of those who had been arrested became rallying cries for the movement, inspiring others to join the fight against oppression. For many, the crackdown presented a moral dilemma. The choice between self-preservation and the duty to resist weighed heavily on the minds of civilians. Some chose to remain silent, fearing for their lives and the safety of their families. Others, however, found the courage to stand up against the occupiers, risking everything to aid the resistance. This moral complexity underscored the human cost of war, as individuals grappled with their responsibilities in a time of crisis. The brutality of the German response had an unintended consequence. It galvanized the civilian population. The horrors witnessed during the crackdown transformed passive observers into active participants in the struggle for freedom. The people of Lyon, once hesitant to engage in resistance activities, began to organize in secret, providing shelter, food, and information to those on the run. The mimeographed orders, once a source of mockery, became symbols of defiance, their contents a testament to the courage of those who dared to resist. As the resistance regrouped, they adapted their strategies to evade detection. Leaders who had escaped arrest worked tirelessly to reorganize their forces, employing new tactics to minimize the risk of exposure. Safe houses were established, and communication networks were restructured to protect the identities of those involved. The mimeographed orders, now carefully encoded, continued to circulate, their messages of hope and defiance inspiring those who longed for liberation. The Nazis, frustrated by their inability to quell the resistance, resorted to increasingly draconian measures. Public executions were staged as grim warnings to those who dared to defy the Reich. Yet, each act of brutality only served to strengthen the resolve of the people. The spirit of Lyon, once subdued, began to rise anew, fueled by the injustices they witnessed. The resistance had become a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in the darkness of occupation. As 1943 drew to a close, the consequences of the crackdown rippled through Lyon. The Armée Secrète, once a fragmented collection of individuals, had transformed into a unified force, its members bound together by a shared vision of freedom. The mimeographed orders, now symbols of their struggle, continued to circulate, their words a reminder of the power of unity in the face of tyranny. In time, the Nazis faced a formidable adversary, one that would not rest until the chains of oppression were broken. The turning point had been reached, and the people of Lyon stood resolute in their determination to fight for their freedom. The consequences of the September sabotage had set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of the resistance, proving that even in the darkest of times, the spirit of defiance could not be extinguished. The aftermath of the September sabotage in Lyon heralded a period of profound transformation for the Armée Secrète and the broader resistance movement. As the dust settled from the explosions that had shattered the German grip on the city, the resistance fighters and the civilian population began to adapt to the new reality of occupation. The brutal crackdown by the Nazis had not only tested their resolve but had also forged a stronger, more unified front against tyranny. By the dawn of 1944, the landscape of resistance in Lyon had undergone a significant metamorphosis. The Armée Secrète, once a loose coalition of disparate groups, had evolved into a cohesive and formidable force. The trials of the previous year had instilled a sense of purpose and unity among the resistance fighters, binding them together in a shared mission to reclaim their city and their country. The mimeographed orders, no longer simple directives, had carried sophisticated plans for coordinated actions, their distribution carefully managed to avoid detection. The support of the civilian population played a crucial role in this transformation. The people of Lyon, galvanized by the brutality of the Nazi reprisals, had become active participants in the struggle. They provided shelter to those on the run, shared vital intelligence, and contributed resources to sustain the resistance. This groundswell of support transformed the Armée Secrète from a clandestine organization into a movement that encompassed the entire city. As the resistance regrouped and reorganized, they found themselves at a crossroads. The moral dilemmas faced by individuals during the crackdown had not disappeared. Instead, they had evolved. The choice between self-preservation and the duty to resist weighed heavily on the minds of many. Some civilians, still haunted by the fear of reprisals, hesitated to engage fully in the resistance. Others, emboldened by the injustices they had witnessed, stepped forward to take on greater risks. The transformation of the resistance was mirrored by a shift in the broader geopolitical landscape. As the Allies prepared for the liberation of Europe, the actions of the French resistance took on new significance. The sabotage operations in Lyon, once isolated acts of defiance, were now part of a larger strategy to undermine German control and pave the way for the Allied advance. The Armée Secrète played a crucial role in this effort, coordinating with other resistance groups across France to disrupt German logistics and communications. The mimeographed orders formerly confined to the streets of Lyon had carried messages of solidarity and coordination to resistance fighters throughout the country. The resistance had become a national movement, united in its determination to drive the occupiers from French soil. The transformation was not merely organizational. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of oppression. As the months passed, the tide of war began to turn. The Allies, buoyed by the successes of the resistance, launched a series of offensives that pushed the Germans back across Europe. In Lyon, the Armée Secrète intensified its efforts, launching a series of daring raids and sabotage missions that further weakened the occupiers' grip on the city. The once mocked paper army had become a formidable force, its actions instrumental in the liberation of France. The transformation of the resistance was complete. The mimeographed orders, once dismissed as trivial, had become symbols of a movement that had defied the odds and changed the course of history. The people of Lyon, no longer united in their struggle against oppression, had prepared for liberation, their streets filled with the promise of freedom. As the Allies advanced, the spirit of the resistance continued to thrive. The Armée Secrète had proven that even in the darkest of times, the light of resistance could shine brightly. The transformation of the resistance had not only changed the fate of Lyon but had also inspired a nation, illustrating the power of unity and determination in the face of tyranny. In the aftermath of the September sabotage, the people of Lyon emerged stronger and more resolute than ever. The legacy of their struggle would endure, a testament to the power of the human spirit to resist oppression and fight for freedom. The transformation of the Armée Secrète and the broader resistance movement would leave an indelible mark on history, proving that even in the face of unimaginable odds, the will to resist could prevail. With the liberation of Lyon in September 1944, the city emerged from the shadows of occupation into the light of freedom. The streets echoed with the jubilant cries of a people who had reclaimed their city. The Armée Secrète, whose actions had played a pivotal role in this liberation, was hailed as a symbol of courage and defiance, its legacy etched into the fabric of French history. The end of the war brought with it a period of reflection and reckoning. The mimeographed orders, once tools of resistance, were now preserved as historical artifacts, their pages a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of those who had dared to defy the Nazis. These documents, once dismissed as the idle fantasies of a defeated people, had become symbols of a movement that had changed the course of history. In the immediate aftermath of liberation, Lyon became a focal point for the celebration of resistance and the commemoration of those who had fought against the Nazi regime. Streets were renamed in honor of resistance fighters, and monuments were erected to pay tribute to the sacrifices made by ordinary citizens who had risen to the occasion. The spirit of the Armée Secrète was woven into the very identity of the city, a constant reminder of the power of collective action in the face of tyranny. The enduring legacy of the Armée Secrète extended beyond the borders of Lyon. Across France, the account of the resistance inspired a new generation to value the principles of freedom and unity. The actions of Jean Moulin and his comrades became a source of national pride, illustrating the importance of standing together in the face of tyranny. Their story was immortalized in the annals of French history, serving as a reminder of the sacrifices made for liberty. In the post-war years, the memory of the resistance was honored through monuments and memorials, their presence a constant reminder of the power of civilian defiance. The people of Lyon, no longer united in their struggle against oppression, came together to rebuild their city, their efforts a testament to the enduring spirit of resilience. The reconstruction of Lyon was not merely a physical endeavor, it was a symbolic act of reclaiming their identity and asserting their autonomy after years of subjugation. The enduring legacy of the Armée Secrète also served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of complacency in the face of tyranny. The mimeographed orders, no longer tools of defiance, had served as a warning of the consequences of inaction, their words a call to vigilance and unity in the face of future threats. The lessons learned from the resistance were not lost on the French populace. They became part of the national consciousness, shaping the discourse around freedom and democracy in the years to come. As the years passed, the account of the Armée Secrète continued to inspire those who sought to challenge injustice and oppression. The legacy of their struggle, immortalized in the pages of history, served as a beacon of hope for those who believed in the power of resistance to change the world. The narratives of bravery and sacrifice were taught in schools, ensuring that future generations understood the importance of standing up against tyranny. In the broader context of post-war Europe, the actions of the French resistance had far-reaching implications. The resistance movements across the continent had demonstrated that ordinary citizens could rise against oppressive regimes, igniting a wave of anti-fascist sentiment that contributed to the eventual establishment of democratic governments in many countries. The spirit of the Armée Secrète resonated beyond France, inspiring movements for liberation and justice in other parts of the world, from Eastern Europe to the decolonization efforts in Africa and Asia. The enduring legacy of the Armée Secrète was also reflected in the cultural sphere. Literature, film, and art began to explore the themes of resistance and resilience, capturing the complexities of the human spirit in times of adversity. Works that depicted the struggles of the resistance fighters became popular, serving as both a tribute to their bravery and a reminder of the cost of freedom. These narratives fostered a sense of solidarity among those who had fought against oppression, creating a shared cultural memory that transcended individual experiences. As the world moved into the latter half of the 20th century, the enduring legacy of the Armée Secrète continued to evolve. The rise of global conflicts and the emergence of new forms of oppression brought the lessons of the resistance into sharp focus. Activists and movements around the world drew inspiration from the courage of the French resistance, using their story as a framework for understanding their own struggles against injustice. The mimeographed orders, once a symbol of local defiance, became a metaphor for the power of grassroots movements to challenge the status quo. In France, the commemoration of the resistance became an integral part of national identity. Anniversaries of key events, such as the September Sabotage, were marked by ceremonies that celebrated the bravery of those who had fought for freedom. Schools and universities organized discussions and lectures on the history of the resistance, ensuring that the lessons of the past remained relevant in contemporary society. The stories of the Armée Secrète were not just historical accounts, they were living narratives that continued to inspire activism and engagement in the present. The enduring legacy of the Armée Secrète also sparked important conversations about the nature of resistance and the moral complexities of fighting against oppression. Scholars and historians began to analyze the ethical dilemmas faced by resistance fighters, exploring the choices they made in the name of freedom. These discussions highlighted the nuanced realities of resistance, emphasizing that the struggle for justice often involves difficult decisions and sacrifices. As the 21st century dawned, the enduring legacy of the Armée Secrète remained a vital part of the collective memory of France and beyond. The principles of solidarity, courage, and resilience that defined their struggle continued to resonate in a world grappling with new forms of oppression and injustice. The account of the Armée Secrète serves as a reminder that Norway's fight for freedom is an ongoing journey, one that requires vigilance and commitment from each generation. In conclusion, the enduring legacy of the Armée Secrète is a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity in the face of tyranny. Their actions during the darkest days of World War II not only changed the fate of Lyon but also inspired a nation and influenced movements for liberation around the globe. The mimeographed orders, once tools of resistance, have become symbols of hope and defiance, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, the light of resistance can shine brightly. The account of the Armée Secrète is not just a historical account, it is a call to action for all who believe in the power of unity and the pursuit of justice.